Denise Judd, she's my property manager.
Okay.
She handles all the contracts.
Okay, so if all three of you would raise your...
Ah, yes, this landlord-tenant case has it all. Angry tenants wanting their money, and possibly a death in the family due to black mold. Who was right? Who was wrong? You be the judge.
right hands for me, please. Swear that testimony in the case will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
Ms. White?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, so this appears to be a case where Mr. Dreyer is the landlord, correct?
Yes.
Okay, and Ms. White, along with another party, signed a rental agreement. And Ms. White moved out in September of 2020. And the property was ultimately subject to an unlawful detainer judgment from February of 2023. And Ms. White has filed a claim against Mr. Dreyer. So Ms. White, I am having a hard time understanding what the nature of your claim is.
So I'm entitled to losses due to black mold, due to legal fees for the last 3 years regarding this case. Frank Dreyer put a $38,000 judgment against me. I had to go to court and get an order of dissemination over that. It completely ruined my credit. I couldn't get this house. I was denied housing. I was trying to have my disabled mother move at the time when I found out about this illegal judgment. They had always kind of threatened me and told me they were going to come after me because I didn't take Eric with me. And so Eric, everybody knew Eric was not leaving. I begged for alternative housing for emergency health reasons from Frank for 30 days for Stephanie and Eric, his mother and him, at least his mother, because she was elderly and sick in a black mold house during COVID. And I said, legally, you are supposed to provide emergency housing for 30 days, is what I was told by a lawyer. And he's denied it. He said, no, I'm not getting a motel for God knows who for however long. And he went off on this, and so I said, well, I signed a lease on September 8th for my new house. I had till September 30th to be out of their house. But I was gone on the 8th, and I went back to make the whole upstairs where I lived immaculate. I took pictures. They did a walkthrough. There's documentation of the walkthrough, the communication with Denise and Frank regarding that I had signed a lease at another place and was moving. I gave them my address. They never responded to me after they did the walkthrough. Denise stopped communication altogether, and I had to actually call 10 times and leave multiple messages. I have documentation that I left texts, emails, and voicemails to her, wanting a response about my deposit and wanting to know, if they were going to follow through with their threat of coming after me, that they had to serve any paperwork at my new address, making sure they knew what it was. But I'm also entitled to loss of wages. I'm entitled to the property damage, loss of wages, my half of the deposits that were made, which is $1,700. It's all recorded. I'm entitled to the inspection. I've been told by a lawyer that I had to pay $495 for a professional infrared black mold inspection that showed water coming up from the foundation of the home. I'm entitled to, they tried to blame us for the black mold problem right away. That was their immediate response. And they also didn't follow the governor's proclamation at the time, because there was a governor proclamation for COVID that you couldn't force people to leave, and then also, but there was health reasons. It was emergency health reasons. So they said they were going to get the health department involved if we didn't leave or if Eric didn't leave. And I actually wanted them to do that. Apparently they didn't follow through with that because now they still have a renter in there. That house should be condemned. But yeah, you know, they want to say that the bedding was too close to the walls and all this other stuff. You know, the only reason why there's less black mold in the upstairs of that house, it's a 2,500 square foot house, old 1970s. I met the guy that built it. And I was also told that the water came down from the hill on Delphi there. There's a huge old well that used to feed McLean Elementary at 80 gallons per minute that comes off of that hill. And that was the water source there. And I was told that they had to divert water several times from going into the foundation of that house, the way it was built back in the hill. So Denise wants to say that there's never been a mold problem there. She told me about it when I moved in. And I said, well, if you've taken the steps to divert the water, then I'm not that concerned. So actually, when it first started happening, I'm like, they already knew about it. And I tried to see if it was going to be something we could solve and stay in the home. But within 20 days, I was out of there. I had to move. I started getting sick. Everybody was lethargic. Nobody should be in that home. Anyway, so I'm entitled to also the
Okay.
legal fees that I've had to
All right,
endure for 3 years.
Hold on, Ms. White. I'm going to ask you some questions. You moved into the house when?
In 2018, let's see, let me get my,
Well,
I believe the lease, I thought I provided the lease with the packet. Maybe I did not.
No,
It
it's in there.
was June 15th of 2018.
right, and you moved out when?
September 30th was the date on the thing, 2020.
Mhm. Okay, and you had been on month to month that whole time?
Yes, I do
Okay.
believe so. I don't,
And
well,
you
this.
gave notice, it looks like you were in there, 2.5 years, and then you gave notice at the beginning of September of 2020?
They served me a notice to terminate tenancy for health reasons. Because I had told them about the black mold, paid for an inspection, and told them that it was a huge problem and that nobody should be staying in that house, basically. And the guy, I have picture. I've also included his whole report. Where's the notice to terminate tenancy? But there's a notice to terminate tenancy filed for health reasons that they had served me on August 20th, I believe. I have it somewhere. Just had it. But I did include that. That's included in my packet, so the judge and everybody should be able to see that. Notice to terminate tenancy on August 20th of 2020. It was served to us in the home because I had complained about the black mold and we had realized how bad of an issue. So they served me with a notice to terminate tenancy and I followed it. At that point, the lease that we had is null and void. That's what I was told by the commissioner, that for the order of dissemination we just had to do. And I've been told that by lawyers for 3 years. That just because they put this roommate clause, like I'm responsible for my roommate in their lease, I guess they think that I was supposed to be responsible for Eric. I don't know. But also, it's really, really horrible that they were charging $2,000 for a black mold home and just racked it up and they denied alternate housing for them, but that's not even my business. My case ended with this notice to terminate tenancy. Any responsibility, any lease I had with them ended with this, and that it's on file in the court. So They didn't tell their lawyer about this. They didn't tell their lawyer about the black mold. Eric Kupka told me. They didn't tell me about the black mold. They didn't tell me about the notice to terminate tenancy. And they just acted like I was still in the house squatting like Eric over COVID for 3 years. That was not the case. So that's an obstruction of justice. They threatened me. My godmother died in that home. She was sick and elderly. She should have been provided alternate housing for 30 days. That's all we asked. And Frank wouldn't do it. So she died in May of 2019 in that house. And they still, anyways, so I have property damages and all this stuff. Yes. That I believe, I am entitled to some of, it's costed me thousands and thousands of dollars and a lot of heartache and a lot of headache. And it was really sad watching Stephanie die in this house. Yes, Eric does drugs. He's now homeless, actually. And yeah, he went downhill during COVID and wouldn't pay his bills, but I only put up with it for a few months and I was leaving anyways. So I was trying to get actually the household separated before I even noticed the black mold. And, but it just went from my mother's carpet being wet and people's carpet being wet downstairs and all this other stuff. That's all on record. So they can blame me for the black mold all they want. But anyways, I'm done for now. I just need somebody that knows the law to go through this case, and I need to recoup at least a little bit of my losses. It's costed me thousands of dollars, and I spent a bunch of money applying for houses earlier in 2022 and kept getting denied, and nobody could tell me why. And then one lady did an extensive background check on me and said, well, you have a $38,000 judgment against you. Did you not know that? So it messed up my credit, my rental history, everything. And then after the order of dissemination, I had to mail out 25 letters to all these companies. I mean, it's been a complete mess, this whole thing. And they don't think that they owe me one single penny, I guess. His lawyer said when the order of dissemination was done, his lawyer, Eric Kupka, said, call me, Jennifer, because I asked the commissioner, how do I recoup some of my losses that I was told by lawyers that I'm entitled to? And she said, talk with Eric. And Eric, she had gotten done scolding him, their lawyer, and said he needs to be more diligent, more careful when he's handling cases like this, and make sure all the tenants, contact all the tenants and see what the story was, because he had no idea about any of this stuff. And she was going to be more diligent too. And, as a commissioner, making sure, because what they did was totally illegal.
Well, the first question I have, and you're touching on it now, seems to me the place where this would be addressed was the hearing you had in Superior Court, and the judge made a determination, and the judge's determination was to remove you for liability for the judgment asserted, but it didn't address the issues you're raising. And I don't know that you can readdress those in another court when you had the opportunity to address them before Commissioner Zinn.
I can ask for my losses and damages. I'm entitled to do that. I can ask for my money. I tried to, talk to their lawyer, but that didn't work.
Okay. Yeah, Mr. Kupka doesn't represent you, right? He represents Mr. Dreyer.
Yes.
Okay, so did you have an attorney in that proceeding?
No, I did not.
Okay.
I didn't need one.
You,
it was a cut and dry case.
Okay. All right. So you didn't try to get one of the attorneys for the Housing Justice Project or anything like that?
Oh, yes, I did. Oh, yes. I had all kinds of advice. And I had a lawyer from the Thor who's had to help me since 2020 over this. case.
Did anybody represent you at the hearing before Commissioner Zinn?
No.
Okay. Did you ask anybody to do that?
I was told by the Northwest Justice Project and by Thor and by, there was another lawyer in Shelton, Bob Johnson, who said that I didn't really need a lawyer, that they were going to have to drop the judgment. I've been told now that I can get a lawyer and probably sue him for thousands of dollars. But I decided to come to small claims court first because I was advised by lawyers that I should try that first.
Okay. So trying to figure this out.
I've had to serve him
So
twice.
you,
I've had
so,
to go
so
through all
Ms.
this.
White,
I
just
mean,
answer
it's
some
been
questions I
expensive.
have, please. You departed in September of 2020 based on a order to vacate or request to vacate. Is that correct?
Yes,
Okay. And you've been relieved of any obligation to Mr. Dryer based on damages to the property that existed in 2023 that Commissioner Zinn awarded to Mr. Dryer, correct?
yes,
Okay. You're trying to recover for some of your costs. Your belief is that you received the notice to vacate because you had sent a letter, I think, to Mr. Dryer in July of that year complaining about the mold issue. Is that right?
yes,
And you paid rent through the end of September of 2020?
yes.
Okay.
Actually, I don't know if I paid in September.
Okay, so you
I
paid
feel
July
like-
and August?
I feel like I think that it was paid through August, maybe.
Okay, and what was your monthly rental payment? Yours alone?
$1,000,
A
which
month?
actually I had to pay. We had to pay more than that because Eric wasn't really paying bills, but my official share was $1,000. Yes. Uh-huh.
Okay. All right, and Denise, what's your last name?
Judd.
Judd, Judd. Thank you. Have you been property manager this whole time?
Yes.
Okay. And you're familiar with all these facts? Okay, so it looks like, am I correct that in July of 2020, Ms. White notified you, Mr. Dryer, that there was a mold issue, it was problematic, and she subsequently got a notice to vacate? Are those facts?
She did give us the information in July that there was mold in the downstairs bathroom. We went in and did an inspection. We did find mold. It had surrounded the whole bathroom, not just a little bit of, it was from the floor to the ceiling. It was probably a 12 by 6. It was a large bathroom. She also reported some other repairs that we've done. So at that time, we started to work with her and Eric to do the repairs in the downstairs bathroom. The mold was out of control. Jennifer never reported mold to us.
Okay, so I'm going to try to narrow this. So when you get the notice in July, you responded, and then what happened?
We started, we had our maintenance guy come in and start doing the cleanup. We scraped the wall, we replaced some of the sheetrock, the molding around the trim, we had to replace. We did a bleach mixture over the mold, and we came back a few days later and we painted it with the Kills paint. Kills paint is a paint that you use for moistured wetter areas like bathrooms. This is a daylight basement. There's no windows in this bathroom, so will grow rapidly there if it's not
Mhm.
taken care of.
Okay. What led to the notice to vacate?
We did hire a person to check for the mold.
Okay, all right, so Mr. Dwyer, let me just ask Ms. Judd some questions.
Oh, okay.
We can use one with us right now. Okay, so what led to the notice to vacate?
Jennifer kept, she was concerned about the mold. She wouldn't turn on her her vents, that everything taped off. The vents were all taped off in the house. There was no air circulation coming into the downstairs basement whatsoever. It was taped off and cardboarded, all the vents. We tried to explain to her, the amount of people in there. They had other people living in there. We tried to explain to her during that month, we're going to take care of this, we got to have somebody come in, maintenance, and take care of it. She just kept complaining and complaining, and she actually told us that she was going to move out then. So in the meantime, this all happened within a month. We had talked with the Washington Landlord Association. They represent us and give us legal advice for free. They said because of the mold in the house, you needed to, it was during COVID, there was a proclamation done by Governor Inslee that there were no evictions, but you could do an eviction if there was a health concern. It is in the governor's proclamation that I have in our packet. It had to be attached to the notice.
Okay, so you did the eviction for Ms. White.
We did a termination, 30-day terminate.
Okay, so she departed and it was around this mold issue.
Yes.
However, Mr. Davis just remained there, and it wasn't until in 2022 that he finally was out.
March 30, he was evicted.
Okay, and then you got your judgment a year later in 2023 from Commissioner Zinn.
Yes, it was 34,000, not 38.
Okay.
But yet, tell them that we undoing this.
Yeah, we when we went to court with Judge Zinn on that 34,000, we had our attorney Eric Kupka represent us during that court, and we asked him to let Jennifer off of that 34,000.
Okay.
And it explains, there's a letter in here explaining, we did tell Eric Kupka that Jennifer moved. We told him that she moved before we hired him. That was all discussed with Eric.
Okay. All right, and she was paying, her share of the rent was $1,000 a month. Is that correct?
We got a check every month for $2,000. The rent was $2,000, and she paid through September.
She paid all the way through
Yes.
September?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, it was the last month's rent that we used for that September, so it was paid through the rental agreement.
Okay, and the notice to vacate was when?
We gave that to them on August 20th with the affidavit of the health concerns.
Okay,
Vacate
and
was September 20th.
Um,
Vacate. was
okay, so
30 days,
August
September
20th and vacate 30 days later.
Yeah, September 20th.
We also have some pictures.
I'd seen those.
Oh, there was never any mold before or after they moved.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question.
What's your question?
So if they had told their lawyer that I had moved, why was I not served at my new address? And why at the time that they were serving the eviction, was I listed as still living in the home? And if they did tell Eric Kupka, why did he lie about not knowing about any of this when they served the eviction?
All right.
So
So, Ms. White, those aren't going to be issues that are relevant to your request to me here, so that's not going to be an issue I can address. I don't know the answer, but that's not going to be relevant in my decision.
well, it costed me money in court.
Okay, all right. That, I'm not addressing any of the costs you had regarding that, so I'm sorry, but I'm looking at something different.
I'm owed. I'm
Okay,
owed
hold on,
legal
Ms. White.
fees.
Ms. White,
I'm owed legal fees for this. This is why we're here
Oh,
today. I'm owed
okay.
legal fees. I'm owed loss of work. I'm owed property damage. This is why we're
Okay,
here.
okay, hold on.
2 years later.
All right. All right. So first, to address some of the issues Ms. White has indicated, the costs associated with the judgment initially obtained as a result of the eviction of Mr. Davis and Ms. White's liability as a tenant jointly and severally under the terms of the lease agreement. She was initially listed on that judgment order, appropriately so under the contract law. However, apparently, Mr. Dreyer and notified his attorney, Mr. Kupka, that he wished not to have Ms. White liable for the costs on the judgment, that it appeared to be Mr. Davis who resided in the unit for a number of years after Ms. White vacated. She vacated in September of 2020. After receiving a notice to vacate from Mr. Dreyer, and the issue that caused that was the issue of mold being present and the need to remediate the mold, and Ms. White's health concerns that she raised about the presence of the mold, the ubiquitous presence of the mold in the home, which Ms. Judd described as overwhelming mold. So they both have somewhat the same opinion of it. As to the costs associated with the eviction judgment entered in Superior Court, Ms. White, the appropriate place for you to have raised that was with Superior Court. I'm not going to award any costs at all for anything that's occurred as a result of you being on net. Anyway, I'll just leave it there. I don't find any legal basis for me to find any judgment for you. The appropriate place would have been in front of Commissioner Zinn to say that you were incurred costs as a result of that and you wished her to order the reimbursement of those. That wasn't done. I can't do that. I can address the underlying tenancy issue, and that's what I intend to do. So it's clear, everybody agrees that there was significant mold in the home, and I've been reviewing the various reports submitted by the parties. And in particular, I find persuasive the report submitted by Northwest Infrared, who did a really careful analysis of the situation in the home, and very detailed. And what we find, having looked at all the information that's before the court, is that from the standpoint of Mr. Dreyer, there were too many people in the home. That was noted both by the Black Hills HVAC company that Mr. Dreyer used, as well as by Northwest Infrared, whom Ms. White retained to come out and look at the home. Both of those experts said there were too many people for the home, and that contributed significantly to the presence of mold. Also noted was the tendency of the tenants to turn off the air, or it doesn't really say, but the implication would be to save costs on the HVAC system, to seal off the vents in the home, to not allow free flow of air throughout the home. And that had been discussed apparently a number of times. And both
like to
analysis.
comment on
Okay,
that.
hold on, Ms. White, don't interrupt me. I've listened to you. This is my judgment. So I'm just explaining it. We're not doing any more fact gathering at this point. On the other side, Northwest Infrared makes note that there were issues with exhaust fans. Both the master bath and hall bath fans were not operable in the way they should be. He said they were barely operating. The other fans were at the end of their expected life and hopefully have been since replaced, because this was a while ago that inspection was done. And so clearly they would need to be gone. Indicating that the home, rather than just having these room fans, they needed a system of whole house fans that are linked in order to properly vent this home. They also note that the fans were discharged into the attic, and that violated the requirement that in fact the fans ought to discharge directly through the roof to the outside air through dampers, and that did not exist. And also a notation that the eave vents, there are some, but there aren't adequate eave vents, and so that contributed to moisture as well. So the situation we have here that I'm finding is that there was a significant mold problem that would justify a tenant in seeking return of rent for a period of time. And that mold problem was contributed to both by the actions of the tenant and by the actions or inactions of the landlord, part of it being construction issues. So I'll find damages, generally speaking, in the amount of $1,000 per month for the months of July, August, and September, understanding that Ms. White her share of the deposit was used to pay September's rent. So I'll find that she fully paid for September. And I'm going to split the liability for the mold damage between the parties. So I'll find it 50% on the landlord and 50% on the tenants. That being the case, of the $3,000 damage that I will find that Ms. White would be liable or would be eligible for as a tenant, or having to vacate a home because a significant mold problem, will be reduced by 50%. And so I'll find judgment for Ms. White in the amount of $1,500. Plus the $50 service fee, or pardon me, filing fee. Ms. White, was there a service fee?
Yeah, it's $65.
Thank you. Total judgment $1,615 in favor of Ms. White. Basis of having to enter tenancy because of the mold problem.
What about the
All right.
$400?
Thank you very much. That's all I'm awarding. Thank you.
Can I also, this is all on record, everything that is going to be on record in a document, that your judgment, your comments on, everything is available to me, correct?
You can make a request to get the recording. It's all been recorded.
Yes.
Thank you.